The National Association of Police, which represents over 1,000 police organizations, officially endorses President Trump for re-election. All as the feds are absolutely crushing far-left activists, particularly in the city of Portland. In this video, we're going to take a look at how police across the nation are officially turning their backs on Joe Biden, and how President Trump's crackdown on the far left is not only restoring law and order, but it's also causing him to surge in the polls. You're not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone, patriots all across the globe. Dr. Steve here with you. Great to be with you as always. I look forward to this time each and every day with you. If this is your first time here at this channel, a very, very warm welcome to each and every one of you. I post 2 videos a day, analyzing current events and analyze some super awesome conservative trends, so that you can live in the present in light of even better things to come. So if you haven't already done so, make sure to smack that subscribe button. It'd be an absolute privilege to have you as a regular part of this channel, where each and every day we together get to celebrate the inevitable collapse of left-wing globalism and the unstoppable rise. You heard that right. The unstoppable rise of a new conservative age. Now, just a quick programming announcement. You know, we recently launched our brand new Turley Talks podcast, which thousands of you have been downloading. I cannot thank you enough for that. But we also wanted to let you know that we are now officially on iHeartRadio, which you can check out and download by clicking on the link below. So that's a brand new resource for everyone. We're very, very excited about that, iHeartRadio. And finally, let's give a huge shout out to the sponsor of this video, and that's the makers of the beautiful, the awesome Fighter Flare flashlight. You are going to love this puppy. Now, one of the best things that you can invest in for your protection when the lights go out is this 6-in-1 beauty, which comes with a 3,000 mAh solar powered recharging battery. It's equipped with a high and low beam light that you can see from miles away. I know my kids have shined it in my face. It has an emergency strobe light, a compass, a wire and rope cutter, an emergency glass breaker hammer, and a high-powered military-grade magnet. It's absolutely amazing. And best of all, as a Turley talker, guess what? You'll get 25% off the new 2020 model before they sell out. But supply is limited, so do not wait. Click on that link below and get your super awesome Fighter Flare flashlight today. All right, gang, let's dive right in here. The massive national backlash against Antifa and Black Lives Matter continues. This time it involves the National Association of Police. Now, if you're not familiar, they are the largest national police organization in the country, and they have officially endorsed President Trump over Joe Biden for this election. And this despite the fact that they endorsed the Obama-Biden ticket back in 2012. Now, what happened is that they held a teleconference the other day. It was a meeting with their members for the specific purpose of choosing whom they would be endorsing. And after a vote, over 2/3 of their membership endorsed Trump. It was overwhelming. Now, again, the National Association of Police is huge. They represent more than 1,000 police associations and nearly 250,000 police officers. They did not endorse a candidate in 2016, but they did endorse, as I noted, the Obama-Biden ticket in 2012. But after the ridiculous defund and disband police effort launched by the Democrats across the country, including the Minneapolis City Council unanimously voting to banish the Minneapolis Police Department, or abolish better, I'm frankly shocked that 1/3 of the National Association actually had the gall to not vote to endorse Trump. I don't know what planet they're living on. It's probably all the police chiefs, right? You know, the politically correct, neutered police chiefs that voted to endorse Biden. I'm assuming that's what they did, but it was all for naught. Well over 2/3 of the nation's police officers are standing firmly behind our president. And make no mistake, this is huge. This is a gigantic boost for President Trump as he campaigns as the president of law and order. When you have the nation's largest police association representing over 1,000 law enforcement organizations standing by our president and rejecting and turning their backs on his ultra-liberal Democrat opponent, that is not going to bode well for Biden. Now, remember, we do have studies that show that riots and acts of civil violence and destruction have the effect of making America far more conservative. As it turns out, riots do not win elections for Democrats. An assistant professor at the Department of Politics at Princeton recently published a paper concluding that the political effects of riots consistently benefit the political right. And what he did is he looked at the 137 violent protests that followed Martin Luther King's assassination back in April of 1968. And what he found was that if your county was proximate to the riots, then that county voted 6 to 8 percentage points more for the Republican candidate than it did in the previous presidential election back in 1964. In 65, you had what were called the Watts riots in California, in LA, and the Democratic governor there, Pat Brown, he ended up losing the 1966 gubernatorial election by 15 points to Ronald Reagan. So it's looking more and more like 1968 all over again. After some of the worst race riots to infect our country since the 1960s, law enforcement is indeed lining up in droves behind our president. Now, what's so fascinating is that this is all going on at the same time that Antifa in Portland is being utterly crushed by the feds. You may have seen this. It's being reported that federal law enforcement officers are using unmarked vehicles to basically drive up to protest suspects in the city and detain them, and then they're driving off. This according to Oregon Public Broadcasting, which are very, very upset about. It's further being reported that men in green military fatigues are patrolling around the city and they're making mass arrests, which is striking terror among all the protesters there. USA Today reported the testimony of one fellow by the name of Mark Pettibone, age 29, who claimed that he was indeed one of those protesters grabbed off the streets of Portland. And he said he was heading home from a protest with a friend early Wednesday morning when several men in green military fatigues jumped out of an unmarked gray van. He said, "I was terrified. It seemed like it was out of a horror sci-fi movie. It was like I was being preyed upon." And he said he ran, but he was caught. He was detained. He was searched. He was taken to a federal courthouse and placed in a holding cell. Officers read him his Miranda rights. And he declined to waive those rights and answer questions. And then he was released with no record of his arrest. Very interesting. So if testimonies like this are accurate, it seems pretty clear that the feds are starting to crack down big time on the far left, Antifa, BLM, rioters, and the like. This does appear to be an extension of Attorney General Bill Barr's new initiative that's being dubbed Operation Legend. You may have heard of this. It's being used to tackle violent crime in our cities. He's deploying federal law enforcement officials, U.S. Marshals, and the like in cities across the country to do the job that these feckless left-wing mayors and governors refuse to do. Remember, what makes these race riots so unprecedented is not their violence or destruction. We've unfortunately seen that before. We just recently, the Freddie Gray riots in Baltimore, the Michael Brown riots in Ferguson. No, what makes these riots so unprecedented is that left-wing mayors and governors deliberately, intentionally abdicated their law enforcement authority and responsibility and turned over their cities to these rioters, looters, and Marxist thugs. That's really what was so shocking about all this. It's like, we saw this with the St. Louis couple, the McCloskeys, the armed couple that protected their home from a mob rampaging through their neighborhood. They testified that prior to coming out on their lawn brandishing their firearms to protect their property, they called the police on these demonstrators who were trespassing on their property, and the police refused to come. They refused to respond to the call. How many thousands of times did that happen over the last several weeks? And again, we now know they didn't respond because their higher-ups, their police chiefs, and their mayors and city council members were not allowing it. After all, it would only escalate things, given how hurtful you've been to the black community. Lawmakers sided with lawbreakers, and they threw law enforcement under the bus. And so what the federal government is doing here with Operation Legend is they're basically standing in the gap left by these feckless left-wing lunatics occupying mayor's offices and city councils and governorships. And it seems to be working. Have you seen this? Trump's poll numbers are surging. Trump's polling jumped by 10 points over the course of just a week, according to Rasmussen. Rasmussen now has the presidential race neck and neck. Both Trump and Biden are tied in accordance with the margin of error, which makes Rasmussen's poll now the third poll in a row showing the race as a statistical tie. And again, this is a national poll, which, includes LA and Chicago and New York, the millions of left-wing urbanites who don't make one whit of a difference when it comes to the Electoral College. A number of opinion polls that have come out of late show that if the election were actually held today, Trump would win, and he would win easily. Pundits have been pointing to a series of polls that were just conducted by the Democracy Institute. We've talked about this one before. They're a Washington, D.C. think tank. And according to their findings, Trump and Biden are now officially tied at 47%. And keep in mind, a recent Zogby poll showed very much the same thing. Trump had totally destroyed Biden's lead. They're tied now at 46%. But while the two were tied in the national polling, Trump has opened up a 4-point lead in the crucial swing states of Florida, Iowa, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and if you can believe it, even Minnesota. On average, Trump leads 48% to Biden's 44% in these very, very crucial swing states. At this point, according to the poll, Trump has 309 electoral votes as compared to Biden's 229. And the primaries earlier this week demonstrated precisely this kind of political strength that Trump has. As Democrat pollster Doug Schoen has observed, Trump was the huge winner in Tuesday's primaries, just this last Tuesday. Several Trump-backed candidates defeated their opponents, and a clear sign of Trump's level of support among Republicans. So this endorsement by the largest police association in the country, along with Trump's own crackdown against the far left, particularly in Portland, it appears to be doing its magic. President Trump is well on his way to re-election. Make no mistake on that. And we can only hope that a massive outpouring of support for his re-election will be the most crushing blow yet against the far left. Now, before you go, you will definitely want to check out my latest video. I just uploaded it on a Black Lives Matter statue getting torn down and thrown in a dumpster after just standing for one day. In fact, we're going to find that BLM murals are getting defaced quite literally everywhere in a massive backlash against these ultra-Marxists. You're going to absolutely love it. So make sure to click on the link, and I will see you over there. God bless.